The Olympics are renowned for sports such as swimming, gymnastics, and track and field, setting the stage for the greatest athletes to compete and determine who is the best in their respective crafts. Yet, for every notable event in the Olympics, there is one forgotten, lost to the passage of time. Today, we're going to be taking a look back at the extinct sports of the Olympics, and also we'll be theorizing on which ones would make a successful comeback today. The first modern Summer Olympics took place in Athens, Greece in 1896, 128 years ago, meaning 128 years for trial and error, deciding which sports contain the ideal balance of athletic performance and spectator entertainment, neither of which were met by our first discontinued event, motorboating. Taking place at the 1908 Games and only the 1908 Games, the competition consisted of 5 laps around an 8 nautical mile course, traversing the waters of Southampton by means of powerboat. Obviously, there isn't much physical activity involved in this race, at least compared to the other competitions like cycling, relays, or, anything that doesn't use a motor. But it must have been entertaining at least, right? Guys zooming down the water, swerving and swearing, making a naval rendition of Mad Max or something. Well, no. This was 1908. This was the first year of the Model T. Average speeds of the boats were 19 miles per hour. It wasn't the most entertaining thing to watch the boats mosey on across the finish line. Or should I say boat, as in singular boat. The weather that week was so bad that competitors were either forced to drop out of the race beforehand or try their luck at making it through the storm. Because of this, all 3 classes only had 1 boat cross the finish line, and the only medals handed out were gold, 1 to France and 2 to Britain. Also, this is a total sidetrack, but my theory is Britain came up with this event as a way of padding their stats, because 16 of the 7 boaters were all on the Britain team. They had 2 to 4 guys operating one of their 5 boats. And then the one other boat in the competition, manned by one other guy, was from France, who was their only opponent. And they still somehow managed to lose. How this event even ever happened, I don't know. And I don't see it ever working in the Olympics nowadays, unless they did turn it into naval Mad Max, because if they did anything like they did back then, it would be so boring. Speaking of boring, walking. Now this one is kind of cheating because race walking is technically still in the Olympics and is actually much more intense than an average person would assume. Not only is it still going strong since its initial appearance in 1908, but they've upped the tempo, adding an insane 50-kilometer race to the mix. Or for my fellow Imperial System natives out there, 31 miles. That's 1 1/5 of a marathon. And sure, it may be walking, but would you believe that in the 20-kilometer events, gold winners are averaging a 9.2 mile per hour pace? Sure, in motorboating, that may be a measly number, but in this case, that's a 6.5 minute mile. Walking. A 6.5 minute mile. That's faster than most can run. But again, why is this even being mentioned if it's still in the Olympics today? Well, it isn't the same as it was when it first started. Race walking began in the Victorian age, when noblemen would bet on their servants walking alongside horse-drawn coaches on who would win. It soon came to the US, taking place in packed arenas with vendors, live music, and gambling. It was practically dog racing, but instead of with dogs, it was with guys in high water pants and bowler hats. If they bring back that atmosphere and attire race walking once had, it would easily be one of the most hyped sports. On that note, tandem cycling. First occurring at the 1908 Olympics as well, it had a temporary resurgence from 1920 to 1972. At its peak, the event would have 28 riders from 14 nations partake on 14 bikes, racing in a sprint format. But as the years passed, it fell out of rotation due to the overshadowing popularity of solitary riding. Tandem cycling did have some advantages, however. Cyclers could go practically twice as fast, and the sprint format made for some exciting drag race-esque moments. Although, tandem cycling really continues to shine in the Paralympics, where visually impaired cyclists seated in the back are paired with an amateur cyclist who steers in the front. This is a much more interesting layout for the sport, and because of that, I'm not so certain routine tandem cycling would do so hot in the Olympics nowadays. The 1904 and 1932 Olympics witnessed the inclusion of club swinging. And no, that isn't just another term for bar hopping. Club swinging is swinging a club. That's kind of it, to be honest. In theory, it's kind of funny. The contestants stand with two bowling pin shaped weights and kind of just move them around their body very quickly, and a panel of judges rate how difficult their movements are. Its origins come from Persian and Indian soldiers as a way of training, which seems valid as a way of training, but as an Olympic sport, it just doesn't belong at all. Rope climbing may bring middle school flashbacks, but in the Olympics, it was a frequent event up until the 30s. Gymnasts would climb an unknotted rope of varying lengths, anywhere from 25 feet to 14 meters. While rope climbing is a pretty straightforward concept, I think it needs to make a return, just because there would no doubt be some freak of nature climbers out there that would annihilate the past records. I mean, the first year rope climbing was in the Olympics, bronze was given to a guy who didn't even make it to the top. They deciphered gold and silver by time, but everyone else was by distance. It was a 45-foot rope. Yeah, this needs to come back so I can see people climb like crazy. Men's sailors 100-meter freestyle. Only appearing at the very first Olympics, the event was open purely to sailors of the Greek Royal Army. Although it started with 11 entries, it ended up being 3 sailors competing in a freestyle race against one another to be the first one to reach shore. From researching the event, it seemed all in good fun and more of a public spectacle than an actual competition, but nonetheless, this would be a fun tradition to carry forward. Have the hosting country provide a competition exclusively for a select group of service members. Considering the Olympics are a very stressful, significant occasion, a low-stakes intermission may be welcome. Taking place at 3 consecutive Olympics from 1984 to 1992 was solo synchronized swimming. Honestly, I don't know how it managed to last that long. One can quickly recognize the paradox here, being solo and synchronized. Again, I don't know how it made it to 3 separate Olympics. I don't know what else to say about it, to be honest, but yeah, this is trash. Staying to the theme of swimming, and frankly much more entertaining than solo synchronized swimming, is the obstacle race. In 1900, 12 swimmers navigated through the River Seine in a 200-meter race across various man-made obstacles. According to its Wikipedia page, 3 obstacles to be exact. The first was a pole lying horizontal to the water that they had to climb over. The second was a row of boats that they also had to climb over. And the third was another row of boats, but this time they had to swim under. Okay, after explaining, it doesn't seem as fun as the name implies, but I still think this would be a great inclusion to bring back. But instead, make it more like Wipeout or something, with more emphasis on the obstacle part. Definitely top tier with slight modifications. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna dance around this one because I don't want to get shadow banned by YouTube, but it's too good to not mention. In 1906, they had what I will call dueling fists, except not fists, but it basically worked how it does in the movies. But instead of punching at each other, they punch at a dummy with a target on his chest at 20 meters and 30 meters distance. However, in 1908, at the Franco-British exhibition, They held duels with two competitors facing each other, covered in protective equipment and using a wax finger. They would fire at each other from opposite sides. 100% bring this one back. Not the official Olympics one from 1906, but the London one from 1908. I understand that could be a safety hazard, but come on. What's more important, safety or viewership? Now, there's plenty of more discontinued sports and events that have left the Olympics, such as hockey or lacrosse, but I felt if I were to include and rank those, it would come down to personal bias on whether I like those sports or not. And while yes, the rest of this video might have been personal bias,